Millionaire thought he moved on. Then his ex arrived with a DNA test. In this enthralling tale of heartbreak, revenge, and unexpected revelations, we follow the life of a self-made millionaire who believes he has finally found peace and happiness until the sudden reappearance of an ex-lover turns his world upside down. Tensions rise as old wounds reopen, secrets come to light, and a shocking DNA test threatens everything he has built. With fortune, pride, and a budding new romance on the line, the stage is set for a gripping drama filled with suspense at every turn. Join us on this emotional roller coaster to discover how a single piece of paper can change destiny forever. Before we dive in, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. If you're excited about this story, let us know. If you enjoyed the video, press 1. If not, press O. Your feedback really inspires me to gather more uplifting and meaningful stories. Arthur Winslow had come a long way from the cramped basement apartment in Queens where he had spent his childhood. Now, at 38, he was the toast of Manhattan's elite, a self-made millionaire who had built his wealth through a string of strategic tech startups and high-profile real estate investments. Tonight, he stood on the balcony of his luxurious penthouse suite at the Ritz-Carlton overlooking Central Park, adjusting the cuffs of his tailored Armani suit. A smile tugged at his lips as he thought about his upcoming engagement party with Charlotte Maxwell, the poised and elegant woman who had swept into his life like a breath of fresh air. Yet, despite his outward confidence, Arthur felt a familiar pang of unease flicker through his heart. Memories of past mistakes lingered like ghosts. He had ended a tumultuous relationship with Olivia Stanton 2 years ago, vowing never to let her manipulative ways infiltrate his life again. He had believed that chapter was firmly closed. Little did he know, a knock on the door tonight would unravel everything he had worked so hard to rebuild. The party was in full swing in the main salon of his penthouse. Waiters in crisp white shirts glided through the room balancing trays of champagne flutes. Golden light danced across the polished marble floors, and the buzz of lively conversation formed a vibrant backdrop to the sounds of violinists playing near the floor-to-ceiling windows. Charlotte's parents had flown in from London, and several well-known venture capitalists made an appearance to congratulate Arthur on his recent business triumph and upcoming nuptials. Arthur tried his best to focus on the festivities. The clink of crystal glasses, the swirl of designer gowns, and the congratulatory nods of powerful men. But the feeling of dread nagged at him. It was as if someone had opened a door to his past. He decided to shake it off after all. This was supposed to be the happiest night of his life so far. He excused himself from a conversation with an investor, determined to make sure Charlotte felt every bit as special as she deserved. He found Charlotte near the grand piano, wearing a stunning silver dress that shimmered with each movement. Her hair was swept back in a flawless chignon, and she beamed when she spotted him. They exchanged a lingering glance that spoke of unspoken devotion. Arthur reached for her hand, and she squeezed back reassuringly. She could sense he was anxious, though she didn't press him for details. Not yet. "Everything looks wonderful," she murmured. "You truly outdid yourself." Before Arthur could respond, a burst of laughter erupted from across the room. He recognized the voice Trent Faulkner, his longtime friend and former college roommate. Trent had been a rock in Arthur's life. He had seen him through heartbreak, rejection, and the eventual rise to success. Arthur motioned for Trent to join them, hoping his friend's jovial spirit might ease the tension building in his own chest. But Trent's usual grin shifted into concern as soon as he noticed Arthur's expression. "Arthur, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Arthur forced a smile. "Just nerves, I guess. This is a big night." His words were half true, but even as he said them, he caught the faintest shadow passing over Trent's face. as though Trent, too, sensed something dark waiting on the horizon. No sooner had Arthur started to relax than he felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to see his assistant, Monique, looking unusually flustered. Her face was pale, and she was twisting her pearl necklace anxiously. "Arthur," she whispered, leaning in so only he could hear, "there's someone here to see you. She's in the lobby and refuses to leave until she speaks with you." His heart sank. The tightness in his chest returned with a vengeance. "Who is it?" Monique hesitated, glancing briefly at Charlotte and Trent before she answered in a hushed tone. "It's Olivia. She says it's urgent. Something about a DNA test." For a moment, Arthur's entire world seemed to tilt off its axis. He had dreaded this possibility. Instinctively, he cast a nervous glance at Charlotte, who was talking to one of her cousins. She hadn't heard a word. Trent, however, seemed to have caught the gist of Monique's message. His eyebrows rose in alarm. Arthur inhaled, trying to steady himself. "Tell her I'll be right down. But please, do whatever it takes to keep this quiet. I don't want to make a scene tonight." Trent insisted on accompanying Arthur to the lobby. They descended in a private elevator, the quiet hum of the machinery failing to mask the knot of anxiety tightening in Arthur's stomach. He hoped Olivia was simply pulling one of her trademark manipulations, a ploy to force a confrontation or wriggle her way into his high-profile event. Yet, the mention of a DNA test gnawed at him. The elevator doors slid open, revealing the opulent lobby of the Ritz-Carlton with its soaring ceilings and glittering chandeliers. And there she was, Olivia Stanton, radiant in a red designer gown, a sight that was both startling and oddly nostalgic. She stood with a certain defiance, arms crossed, chin tilted upward. Arthur's pulse quickened as the memories flooded in late-night arguments, broken promises, and a toxic love that had once consumed them both. She spotted him immediately and strode forward. "Arthur," she said, her voice steady, though her eyes brimmed with pent-up emotion. "We need to talk." Trent positioned himself protectively beside Arthur, but Olivia didn't even blink. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "This is a DNA test," she announced, "and the child in question is yours." For a brief moment, Arthur's vision narrowed, as though the entire world had shrunk to that single piece of paper in Olivia's hand. This was the last thing he had expected when he woke up that morning. He took a hesitant step forward, acutely aware of the curious gazes of hotel guests milling around. "Let's take this somewhere private," he said through gritted teeth. His tone betrayed a mixture of anger and desperation. Olivia had impeccable timing, appearing on the very night he was to celebrate his engagement to another woman. Trent nodded in agreement, and together they ushered Olivia into a small executive lounge off the main lobby. Inside, the air felt thick with tension as Arthur turned to face the woman he had once loved with reckless abandon. "Explain," he demanded, "and be quick." Olivia's lips trembled, but she held her ground. "After you ended things with me, I found out I was pregnant. You made it clear you didn't want anything more to do with me, so I left. I moved to Chicago, but now I'm back because you have a right to know. The baby, my son, is yours." She held out the paper, her eyes misty. "Go ahead, read it." Arthur stared at the document. The official letterhead read, "Quest Diagnostics." A lump formed in his throat. This was real, no shady, back alley test. If it was indeed genuine, everything in his life was about to change. He snatched the paper from her hand, scanning every line. The jargon was unmistakable: probabilities, markers, paternal inclusions. According to the test results, there was a 99% chance that Olivia's child was indeed his. He looked up, his mind racing, uncertain whether to feel betrayed or simply numb. Trent exhaled a sharp breath. "Arthur, man, maybe you should just..." But Arthur cut him off with a wave of his hand. Why now, Olivia? Why wait until I'm about to get engaged? She lifted her chin, defiance flashing in her eyes. Because I have been trying to contact you for months. You changed your phone number, blocked me on social media, and made sure your office staff wouldn't take my calls. When I heard about your engagement from mutual friends, I knew I had to do something drastic. Our son deserves more. Where is he? Arthur asked. He's with a sitter at my apartment, she replied. I didn't think it was wise to bring him here in the middle of your party. Arthur resisted the urge to slam his fist against the table. His carefully constructed new life felt like it was collapsing, and the evening had only just begun. What would Charlotte think? How would the public react if this went viral? More importantly, how was he supposed to handle being a father to a child he hadn't known existed for almost 2 years? Outside the lounge, the hotel staff continued to bustle, oblivious to the drama unfolding within. Arthur felt sweat forming at his temples. He turned to Trent. I need you to take Olivia out of here quietly. Pay for her cab, her dinner, whatever it takes. Just make sure she doesn't cause a scene. Olivia rolled her eyes. I'm not some vagrant you can just pay off, Arthur. I'm telling you the truth about our son. And if you want proof beyond this test, I can arrange for another. I want another, Arthur said flatly. An independent test at a lab I choose. If it comes back positive again. He trailed off, struggling to find the right words. A swirl of anger, fear, and curiosity consumed him. Olivia's expression softened. He looks just like you, Arthur. He has your eyes, your smile. For the briefest moment, her face wavered between triumph and heartbreak. He's a good boy, and he deserves better than lies and secrets. Arthur nodded toward Trent. Please see her out. Then he fixed Olivia with a gaze half filled with remorse, half with defiance. I'll be in touch tomorrow. We'll settle this once and for all. The moment Olivia left, Arthur collapsed onto a leather armchair, burying his head in his hands. This was immediate, inescapable karma for the way he had ended things, wasn't it? He had ghosted Olivia, anxious to purge her from his life. Now, on the eve of his fresh start, she had returned with the most monumental news possible. Trent placed a reassuring hand on Arthur's shoulder. You okay? Arthur let out a hollow laugh. I don't even know how to answer that. I have a child, apparently, and I'm supposed to head back upstairs and celebrate with Charlotte and everyone else like nothing's happened. You can't keep this from her, Trent said gently. She needs to know. Arthur sighed. I'll tell her, but not tonight. Let me get confirmation. Let me figure out a plan. I don't want to blindside her during our engagement party. Trent hesitated, then nodded. I understand, but don't wait too long. Secrets have a way of exploding when you least expect them. Arthur went back upstairs, forcing himself to smile and play the gracious host, but his mind kept drifting. He could hardly taste the champagne, barely register the lavish praise from guests, marveling at his picture-perfect engagement. Charlotte noticed his distraction and gently took him aside. Is everything all right? She asked, her eyes searching his. I'm fine, just business stress, he lied, hating himself for it. Let's enjoy the night. Still unconvinced, Charlotte pressed her palm against his cheek, a quiet plea in her expression. I love you, she whispered. He mustered a smile. I love you too. For the rest of the evening, Arthur operated on autopilot, greeting well-wishers and posing for photos. But inside, he was a storm of conflicting emotions. His heart hammered with guilt for lying to Charlotte, and fear over the impending chaos once the truth was revealed. What if the child truly was his? That changed everything, his priorities, his marriage prospects, his very identity. When the last guest finally departed, Charlotte retired for the night, exhausted from the whirlwind of celebrations. Arthur told her he had some urgent paperwork to handle, Under the glow of a single lamp in his study, he replayed Olivia's words in his mind. He has your eyes, your smile. He typed an email to a reputable genetics clinic in Manhattan, requesting a new paternity test as soon as possible. His fingers shook as he hit send. Then, unable to stand the oppressive silence, he threw on a coat and went for a walk. The city was eerily quiet at 2 a.m. Streetlights cast pale circles on the sidewalk, and a few late-night taxis cruised by. Arthur's thoughts were a jumble of what-ifs. For years, he had been proud of his calculated approach to life. He took risks only when they guaranteed big returns, both in finance and in relationships. Yet, the unpredictability of fatherhood loomed before him like a foreign land. Could he handle it? Would Charlotte stand by him once she learned the truth? Dawn found Arthur still awake. He paced through the penthouse until he heard Charlotte stirring. He steeled himself, deciding he couldn't bear the secrecy anymore. He found her in the kitchen, brewing fresh coffee. She looked radiant even in pajamas, hair tousled, face free of makeup. Yet her expression turned grave the moment she saw him. "You didn't sleep, did you?" "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice almost a whisper. She turned off the coffee maker. "All right," she said slowly, "go on." Arthur led her to the sofa. The words tumbled out in broken fragments: Olivia's return, the DNA test, and the possibility that he had a son. Charlotte sat still, her eyes wide, absorbing each detail in silence. When he finished, she exhaled shakily. "I don't know what to say. This is a lot." "I'm sorry I didn't tell you last night," he said, guilt slicing through him. I needed to confirm it first." Charlotte swallowed hard. "I understand why you waited, but this changes everything. You know that, right?" Her tone was more sad than angry. "If this child is yours, you have a responsibility to him." Arthur nodded, relief and dread mingling in his chest. "I know. Will you stand by me?" Her eyes glistened. "I want to, Arthur, but let's see what the next test says, and let's talk more. I need time to process this." The following week was a blur. Arthur arranged a second paternity test at a reputable lab, ensuring every aspect was handled with meticulous care. Olivia cooperated, bringing her child Nicholas to the clinic. Arthur's heart lurched when he first saw the boy. Nicholas had a mop of dark hair, and did indeed share Arthur's striking hazel eyes. The new results arrived quickly, confirming what the Quest Diagnostics report had already shown. Nicholas was his son. Arthur felt both horror and wonder. A father. The realization came rushing at him, a living, breathing little person who bore his own features. Charlotte tried to be supportive, but tension filled the penthouse like a thick fog. Their once carefree breakfasts turned into awkward silences, and the playful banter they used to share late at night was replaced by cautious conversations about how to handle the situation. Arthur made arrangements to see Nicholas regularly. He met Olivia in a neighborhood cafe in Greenwich Village for a meeting he hoped might set the terms for co-parenting. The encounter was every bit as nerve-wracking as he feared. The cafe was softly lit, a place where serious discussions seemed at odds with the comforting aroma of fresh croissants. Nicholas sat in a stroller, occasionally gurgling or reaching out for the bright colors that dangled from his mobile. Arthur found his attention constantly drifting to the boy. Each time Nicholas cooed, Arthur felt a strange mixture of pride and panic. "So, what now?" Olivia asked as she sipped a latte. "Are you going to set us up with some hush money arrangement?" Arthur bristled. "Olivia, I want to be in Nicholas's life. I wasn't there before because I didn't know he existed. Now that I do, I won't run away. I'm not looking to buy anyone's silence." She studied him warily. "You really have changed, haven't you?" There was a note of nostalgia in her voice, tempered by lingering distrust. "Well, I won't lie. Raising Nicholas alone hasn't been easy. I moved back here hoping for a better future for him. But I didn't come to blackmail you. I came because I'm tired of secrets. He deserves both parents. They hammered out a tentative plan. Arthur would provide for Nicholas financially, medical expenses, childcare, and eventually schooling, and he would also spend time with him twice a week. Olivia agreed not to show up at Arthur's home or office unannounced, as long as he stayed true to his promises. But a prickling worry nagged at Arthur's mind. Where did this leave his relationship with Charlotte? That very evening, Arthur returned to the penthouse, which felt more like a museum than a home. The quiet halls, the immaculate living area, everything seemed sterile and unwelcoming. Charlotte was in the study, reviewing documents for her philanthropic foundation, but she set them aside when he walked in. "How was it?" she asked, her voice low. Arthur tried to smile, but it came out pained. "We talked about co-parenting. I'll see Nicholas twice a week." He hesitated, then added, "I hope that's okay with you, Charlotte. I don't want to lose you." She stood up and walked to the window, gazing at the sparkling lights of the city. "I'm not sure what I feel, Arthur. Part of me admires you for stepping up, but another part is afraid. This isn't the life I envisioned. I didn't expect an ex-girlfriend or a child to factor into our marriage." He joined her by the window, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "I understand. Honestly, I'm scared too, but Nicholas is innocent in this, and I want to be a better man than the one Olivia knew." She turned to face him, tears shining in her eyes. "I know you love me, but I also know this changes our future. We need to be honest about that." Despite the emotional strain, Arthur pressed on. He met Nicholas at a nearby park that weekend. The child tottered around, fascinated by pigeons pecking at breadcrumbs. Arthur felt an odd sense of pride every time. Nicholas reached out for his hand. In those moments, he glimpsed a different version of himself, a father figure who found meaning not in boardroom conquests, but in the uncomplicated joy of a child's laughter. Life, however, grew increasingly complicated. The tabloids got wind of Manhattan's eligible millionaire and his secret child, plastering Arthur's face on their covers. Online chatter buzzed with speculation. Was Charlotte going to call off the wedding? Was Olivia after his fortune? One morning, as Arthur scrolled through his phone, he spotted a viral article accusing Olivia of orchestrating the entire situation to trap him. The piece cited anonymous sources claiming she had doctored the test results. Arthur felt sick. Another article suggested Charlotte's family had threatened to sue Olivia. None of it was true, but the rumors stoked tensions everywhere he turned. The final straw came one bright afternoon when paparazzi descended on the park, snapping pictures of Arthur, Olivia, and Nicholas from behind bushes. A tabloid journalist even approached Olivia directly, shouting invasive questions about her intentions. The confrontation escalated until a passerby threatened to call the police. That night, Arthur found Charlotte packing an overnight bag in their bedroom. "What's going on?" he asked, heart pounding. She paused, tears glistening on her lashes. "I'm going to stay with my parents in London for a while. I need space, Arthur. This has become too overwhelming. The scandal, the cameras, the questions, it's all too much." He reached out to touch her arm. "Please, Charlotte, I understand this is hard, but can't we face it together?" She swallowed. "I'm trying to figure out if I can handle this at all. I love you, Arthur, but I didn't sign up for a full-blown public scandal and an ex-girlfriend in the picture. I just need time to sort out my thoughts." Arthur's heart felt like it was breaking. He watched helplessly as she zipped her bag. "How long?" She shook her head. "I don't know. I'll call you." He stood in silence as she left, the echo of her footsteps lingering like the ghost of a promise. Arthur sank into a deep melancholy. He threw himself into work, burying his pain in board meetings and product launches, but even that offered no real escape. His staff whispered that he was more irritable than ever, firing off critical emails at odd hours. Olivia, noticing the shift in his demeanor, tried to set boundaries. She even offered to keep Nicholas away until things calmed down, but Arthur refused. "He's my son. I won't abandon him," he said firmly. Then, as though the universe sought to dole out a dose of immediate karma, Arthur's largest investor pulled out from a pending deal, citing negative publicity. That triggered a domino effect, and within days, 2 other partners dropped out. The carefully constructed empire he had built teetered under the strain. Late one night, Arthur sat in his once pristine study, staring at the city lights. He couldn't help but think about how he had cut Olivia out of his life so coldly before. Now, life was thrusting her and his responsibilities squarely into the center of his world. He realized that his old pattern of running away or covering things with money wasn't going to work. This was the karmic bill for all his past disregard. It was time to pay up or lose the chance at a genuine, meaningful future. Desperate for a moment of clarity, Arthur arranged a meeting with Olivia one afternoon at a quiet bistro. She arrived with Nicholas, who giggled at every passing waiter. Arthur took a shaky breath, addressing Olivia with a sincerity she had rarely seen from him. "I know our history is complicated. I know I made mistakes and hurt you, but I'm ready to step up for Nicholas and be the father he needs." She smiled wearily, but her eyes reflected relief. "I've always wanted that. I never wanted to do this alone. I just didn't think you cared." Arthur gently reached out to touch Nicholas's tiny hand. "I do care, more than I ever knew I could." At that moment, the bistro door swung open and in walked Charlotte. Arthur's stomach dropped. He hadn't seen her in weeks. She looked poised but uncertain, her gaze flicking from him to Olivia to Nicholas. "Charlotte?" Arthur stood. I didn't expect you here." She took a tentative step forward. "I flew back this morning. I wanted to see you. Trent told me you might be here." She glanced at Olivia, who stood protectively by Nicholas's stroller. "I'm sorry if I'm interrupting." Olivia, for her part, seemed unsure but politely stepped aside. Arthur invited Charlotte to join them. They all sat down together. What followed was the most open conversation they'd ever had about mistakes, misunderstandings, and second chances. Charlotte confessed she had spent weeks deciding if she could be part of a life that now included Olivia and Nicholas. She admitted her fear, but also acknowledged her love for Arthur. Olivia admitted she harbored resentment, but saw how Arthur was trying to make amends. In the end, none of them walked out with definitive answers. But they walked out together, for the first time without hostility or secrecy. Over the next several months, a slow, delicate reconciliation took place. Arthur introduced Nicholas to Charlotte more formally, and while the child was hesitant, he eventually warmed to her gentle smiles and soft, spoken manner. Olivia tentatively befriended Charlotte, bonding over the absurdity of their situation, 2 women who never thought they'd have to share the attention of one complicated man and one adorable toddler. As for Arthur's business, he had to scramble to secure new investments, re-evaluating his priorities. He found that being a more hands-on father gave him fresh insight into what truly mattered. The public scandal eventually died down, replaced by more sensational news. In time, people forgot about the millionaire's secret child, and Arthur relished the newfound privacy. One crisp autumn evening, as the leaves turned golden in Central Park, Arthur stood on the same penthouse balcony where all this chaos had begun. He looked out at the city lights, reflecting on the whirlwind of drama that had nearly destroyed his life. But in the wreckage, he had discovered something more meaningful than money or social prestige. He had discovered love in all its messy forms, paternal, romantic, and even a kind of respect for the woman he once spurned. With Nicholas sleeping in a cozy nursery down the hall decorated with cheerful walls and stuffed animals, Charlotte reading quietly in the living room, and Olivia navigating her own career while co-parenting amicably, Arthur felt a sense of profound gratitude. The immediate karma that had once felt like punishment had, in a twist of fate, forced him to confront his flaws and grow into a better man. And so, on a crisp evening beneath the shimmering Manhattan skyline, Arthur Winslow finally understood that the real measure of a man's wealth was not in the size of his bank account or the square footage of his penthouse, but in the depth of the connections he forged with those who shared his life. Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable journey of secrets, second chances, and the powerful bond of family. We hope Arthur's tumultuous story reminds you that life's true riches aren't measured solely in dollar signs sometimes. Our greatest treasure lies in the relationships we cultivate and the lessons we learn from our mistakes. If you found yourself on the edge of your seat, hungry for more twists and turns, then please take a moment to support this channel. A simple like, a share with friends, and most importantly subscribing will ensure you never miss another dramatic tale. Together, let's keep exploring the surprising paths that life can take. Thank you for watching.